Hello and welcome back, one and all, to another day here at the Damage Report. I am John Idarola, and I am a very lucky man indeed, because joining us once again after far too long of a wait, actor, host, all around nice guy, Brian Unger. Welcome back to the Damage Report.
Good God, it's been a long time. How are you?
It has been. I mean, it's been mostly uneventful times, at least. It just sailed by without anything of significance happening. No, I've been okay. More importantly, how have you been? What have you been up to?
You mean you're not sort of traipsing around maskless everywhere and really just sort of now with liberation from mandates, et cetera, and protocols and celebrating, or just being in denial in public that we're that we're coming out the other end of this entire pandemic colonoscopy that we were having?
No, that's mostly that. What about you?
I've been enjoying lockdown. I'm still in lockdown. I'm not leaving. I haven't left my house, and when I do, I'm resentful of anyone who comes within 6 feet of me. Yeah, and short of wrangling up all the unvaccinated and bitch slapping them all, I'm doing great. I really am. Yeah.
Always an option. No, like if I'm just walking my dog and I'm not gonna be near anyone, I won't necessarily have one on. I did once accidentally, my wife and I were going somewhere and we had to stop at a Ralph's to just pick up like a sandwich or something. And I got out, she like stopped and I ran in. And I walked in and I realized I was like 10 feet inside the Ralph's and I realized I didn't have my mask on. And I was like, oh God. I did go back and get one, but I felt like I'm one of those people. So anyway, any right wingers watching this?
In a microcosm of the universe, I live out in an rural area of LA County, and at the Ralph's here, no one is wearing a mask, and people are proud of that fact. And then yet, 15 miles away, it's like everyone is masked, everyone is keeping distance, and that is essentially the world in a sort of microcosm. That how ineffective everything ended up being, and how we all failed this massive public policy sort of initiative, you know. But anyway, I don't really want to I got married too.
I actually had no idea that had happened. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Very happy. Yeah.
No, I did not know that. Yeah. That's very cool.
I did. I got married in August. Nick and I have been together for many years, and we decided during COVID that we would do that, but it's impossible to get a marriage license in LA County. So we had to pay off some notary like $800 to officiate in a public park where we were distanced from no one but a homeless man who slept like 15 feet away in the grass while we were married, and like 5 minutes exchanged cash, got a license, and here I am. So,
well, hopefully you.
And you're married now too,
scheme.
Right?
I am actually. We got married right before the pandemic. We decided, you know what? We're just gonna test the bounds and strains of this thing, and so no, but it's been good, and we're still together against all odds.
So are we. So we're seeing how
that's great. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great to have you here. Great to have the audience here. Thank you everyone for sticking with us. We've got a pretty fun rundown actually, including good news. Sometimes it takes us weeks of searching, but we've identified some, and we'll be getting to it before too much longer. And you're definitely gonna want to stick around to the end of the show, because we will once again be taking a look at news from around the world in our Meanwhile In segments. So that'll be coming up soon. Along the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that would be great. So the people know we're live. You can send us comments, tweets, super chats, all that. We'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Brian Unger, ready to do this thing?
I'm going to participate the best I can. You know I love you, and I know I love the Young Turks so much, and I just am literally like I don't know. It's like I'm the glitter on the broadcast. I just get sprinkled on the top. I'm that little weird pink stuff on the celebration cake. I am merely just an additive and I try to bring some color and flavor and something to this process, and succeed very seldom. And your viewers and listeners are always so kind. So here we go. Let's do this.
Here we go. Yes, we're gonna start off with the most substantive of stories. So I apologize. This is gonna be a challenge. But with that, let's watch this video.
People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times. as opposed to once. They end up using more water.
You might recall that sort of video. And for a long time, it was just such a weird thing that the former president would talk about, like 1, 2, 3, flush over and over. And I always thought that's not generally my experience or for most people, but we now understand why he was having so much trouble with his plumbing. It's being reported now by Axios. While President Trump was in office, staff in the White House residence periodically discovered wads of printed paper clogging a toilet and believed the president had flushed pieces of paper. Now, this is coming from Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, who decided not to reveal this for a very long time. We'll talk more about that, and is only coming out in her new book, Confidence Man. So we know we've had one mystery solved, why his toilet was so clogged. New mysteries, though, have sprung up from this. You might recall this image from back when Trump was president, and he was filmed walking up the stairs to Air Force One with toilet paper on his shoe. Or was it toilet paper? Was that perhaps a draft of a treaty with Iran? Maybe a speech he was about to give. Maybe we could zoom in and find some notes on the edge. That could be almost any important government document that was stuck to the president's shoe. This is so ridiculous. Anyway, yes. In addition to all the other reporting,
rename the book "Continence Man," though. I think that's a better. What do you think? Is that?
I think it's not bad. Not bad.
Listen,
I don't know how much
I love this as an opportunity.
I
look at all things like this as an opportunity, and I know Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. We both worked for similar companies, and I think this is as good a time as any for Mike to put on a hazmat suit, show that he really is not a partisan, by the way, and wade deeply into the bowels of not Donald Trump, but go into the pipes of the White House and let's really excavate years of presidential poop. I say forensically, let's go in there and find, hey, maybe Abe Lincoln flushed some other Gettysburg Address down the toilet. This is a great opportunity. It's also a TV show. It's a movie. It's a serialized book like the Hardy Boys was for a whole generation of little detectives. I don't know, Mike Rowe, I'm calling upon you to put your foot where your mouth is or whatever.
Yeah.
Or get in there, find these documents.
I think he could do that if he is busy. I think that you could host that. I like some of the starting points for historical research you've got there. Maybe that wasn't the first draft of the Gettysburg Address. Maybe he flushed number 1. Maybe he flushed number 2. We need to find out. We need to get in there and see what's going on. Was there anything Trump did as president that like we already got used to the idea that his official pronouncements via Twitter were done while sitting on the toilet, but he was also going through documents. So he never read the documents. That's pretty clear at this point, but he did find time to tear them up while pooping.
Or I don't know, maybe he's a literalist when he yelled at staffers and said, I wouldn't wipe my ass with that document. And yet he did. And
he
so
found a way.
There's that. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, the plumbing in the White House is also, it's old. And I'm surprised he got anything down there, down those pipes. But
yeah, they were already strained enough by the presidential McDonald's parties. And now we've got the
they were put to the test.
They were. Well, look, now we have to be fair because we are obviously a serious news program. So Donald Trump has put out a statement responding to this saying, also another fake story that I flushed papers and documents down a White House toilet is categorically untrue and simply made up by a reporter in order to get publicity for a mostly fictitious book, which of course he hasn't seen. And I say that not only because it's not yet to come out, but also because it's a book. I don't think he's gonna read it. Are we being biased? Are we being partisans in just taking Maggie Haberman's word on this?
I think it's emblematic of a guy who clearly felt he was royalty and still does, that he's above the law, that he's above what are the National Archives sort of, there is a law and an act that requires them to provide these documents and to keep them. But I mean, listen, would we have known what a schmuck Donald Rumsfeld was if we hadn't maintained and kept some of these written memos and documents that show that he was writing certain things down and saying other things out of the other side of his mouth? So, I I mean, we know politicians speak with a forked tongue. We just don't. And so historians like to go back and have some proof of that. What we have to do now is tape together fecal soil documents. And there is an archivist at the National Archive who will have to really, in the line of duty, is there something funny? In the line of they will have to take on their duty and really execute, piece together link by link.
Just digging for nuggets of information, whatever you can find. Anyway, okay. The news sometime.
This reads like an Onion article. I can't believe that this is a thing that Maggie Haberman has.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question, serious question. So as friend of the show, Parker Malloy responded to this initial reporting. Is there a reason you didn't report this out? Now look, this is hardly the first thing where a really important bit of news was held for months and months, if not years. Is it right to be frustrated with reporters, or is this just they're following the financial incentives that we have as a society have set up? So where do you come out on this?
I mean, I think the natural course of journalism is to discover things for years and years and years about presidents. It's an unending sort of like trail of forensic sort of knowledge that kind of comes together. The thing about is the public is so busy, trying to make car payments and do other things. Do they notice anymore? Do we, we learned more about Nixon or Kennedy or LBJ. We learned so much about the Vietnam War decades later, and we'll learn about Trump decades from now. But the question is, are we just numb to whatever outrageousness this guy that we uncover about him? I wonder. The Kardashians are interesting. They're interesting. People care about that. People care about. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
And look, this affects a lot of people. Like I am always interested in whatever drama's happening on the set of upcoming Marvel movies. Who's an anti-vaxxer? I am legitimately interested in that. So I get that that's the sort of thing that can occupy people's time.
I hope people care. I hope there's like a Ken Burns like 20 years from now. If it is Ken Burns, it could be if he lives forever. I hope there is someone who has, I see that PBS documentary or whatever that is that Ken Burnsy thing. It won't have that quaint violin music playing in the background and actors reading Trump's words, but there will be some big, unearthing of stuff. And it might just be a giant vat of poop. I don't know.
That's true.
I'm not sure.
There could be a giant release of information of the sort Trump has traditionally referred to as big dumps, maybe big dumps of information, or maybe it'll get pinched off and we'll have like a sort of like news constipation period. Like we need that information for democracy to work.
Someone's just gonna have to, someone will have to get through the back door and figure out how to dig this stuff out.
Okay, Gabby says, if not Mike Rowe, could we at least get the lawyer and Charlie to go spelunking in White House plumbing for reasons? I definitely watched that spinoff.
I like it. I'm gonna pitch those guys today.
Should do it. I think, having to tape back together the shredded and then toilet dunked papers is the ultimate Charlie work, actually, I think.
I agree.
Early Bird says, always used to joke that Trump wiped his A with the Constitution. Now it turns out it may be literal. Eating docs didn't suit his Constitution either. Are you at all surprised that he didn't make off with some like national treasure, like literally the Constitution or something like that? Are we sure that he didn't? There have been a lot of revelations in the past few weeks about the handling of documents in the previous administration. Of course, now we've got the toilet flushing story from Maggie Haberman's thing where Trump not only was ripping apart papers, we'd sort of become used to the idea that he, like a toddler, would do that, but that he would actually flush the ones he was particularly mad at. Maybe he had discovered that some of his aides were specifically tasked to tape the papers back together, and to make sure that even that wouldn't happen, he began flushing them. I don't know. But apparently the National Archives has reportedly asked the Biden Justice Department to examine the handling of White House records. Remember, this is not just a thing where like, hey, it'd be cool to have these documents without them being smeared with, the products of a body. No, there are legal implications to this. Like you are not supposed to be destroying these things. So tearing them up, or for instance, the reporting last week that he brought substantial written materials from the White House to Mar-a-Lago when he was finally evicted, including things like the hurricane map that he'd Sharpied on, but tons of other documents. There are potentially legal implications to this. Apparently, in the materials that were brought to Mar-a-Lago, archive officials found possible classified material that he is not supposed to. They're not like mementos from the set that you just get to take after.
Yeah, it's not like a saddle or a trophy or a sharp knife he got from someone on a trip for the Trump Presidential Library. It's not like that. It's like there are actual real government documents that are in boxes in Mar-a-Lago that are just unattended, hanging out in an office somewhere. Yeah, that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's not even. Look, I have assured our audience years ago that I would never, ever, ever be fair to Donald Trump. So I'm obviously predisposed to assume the worst. I don't necessarily think that he's doing anything untoward with the materials. I just think, look, he rips up papers because he's a baby. He probably also wants to keep the documents because he's a baby. We found out, by the way, that some of the things that he kept were the letters that Kim Jong-un and he sent back and forth. The ones where he said that they fell in love through that. And apparently, by the way, he still keeps in contact with Kim Jong-un since then. That was revealed in this. I don't know what those conversations are like. But that said, if you're gonna be totally fine with this, and the right wing is 100% fine with all of this, they are not addressing it, let alone having a problem with it.
Are they fine with it?
I haven't, well, they're silent about it. They don't seem to be bothered by documents being shredded or put in burn bags and things like that. So if you're gonna have that position, at the very least, don't have that position after a multi-year run of believing that Hillary Clinton's phone use is the biggest national scandal in 100 years. So at least have some consistency, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But that doesn't surprise me, or anyone probably, right?
No, not especially. So that's the serious implication. I want to end before we go to our first break. I just want to play this next video just because with the new information, it's just fun in hindsight.
We won't talk about toilets, but that's 10, 15, but we don't talk about that. Because I've said this 3 or 4 times, the only subject they ever talk about is toilets, so I don't mention toilets.
Former president. 10, 15, why won't it flush? He was the most powerful person in the world, and he might be again. When we come back, Dave Chapelle is back in the news. It's probably for something good, right? Well, to find out, you're gonna have to wait until after this.
No? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dave Chapelle. I just want to say, and Marianne, I could talk to you about this privately. I don't know why the village council would be afraid of litigation from a $24 million a year company while they X out the $65 million a year company. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you. You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so that is a video, obviously, of comedian Dave Chapelle talking at this meeting that was being had in the area he lives in about a proposed affordable housing development. That video has, of course, gone viral because it appears certainly that Dave Chapelle is not only against the development of the affordable housing project, but is actually using the potential pullback from his proposed business developments in that area, which amount to quite a bit, to put pressure on them to not allow this. Now, I have been doing all that I can to try to get as much information about this, including going to, reporting on prior meetings several months ago about this. And I am a little bit worried about some of the coverage stating very specifically, he doesn't want affordable housing, so he's killing it. I think there is certainly it is open to that interpretation, particularly because he has not actually made clear since this video has gone viral what it is that he specifically opposed. If the coverage is misinterpreting his opposition to the program, there hasn't been a clarification. So at this point, though, it isn't actually going to happen. Now, I want to give you a little bit more background information. In this area, he was proposing opening up a comedy club and a restaurant in Yellow Springs in Ohio. Now, he lives in the area. He frequented this particular area as a child, and he threatened to remove what he was going to be building if they didn't go along with this. He had previously said back in December, I just want to say I am adamantly opposed to it. I have invested millions of dollars in town. If you push this thing through, what I'm investing is no longer applicable. And ultimately, the village council did vote 2-2, which was enough to kill the proposed development. Now, instead of being sort of a mix of single family homes, duplexes, and townhomes, and area that would later be developed for affordable housing, it will instead just have 143 single family homes, which are believed they will start at about $300,000 each. So understanding that there's a bit of ambiguity to this potentially, Brian, what do you make of this?
Well, first I should make this disclaimer. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, right next door to Yellow Springs. So that makes me, in other words, completely unqualified and partisan in this argument. I don't know, Dave Chapelle is like this lightning rod now. He's super clickbaitable. Everyone likes to jump on him and for anything because of his most recent transgressions against whatever. But I know these zoning meetings are, and this was like a zoning meeting where they go in and they change the classification of a neighborhood or a section in your town so that it can be developed permanently as this zoning thing. And I went to one of these zoning things in my own neighborhood because my 7-Eleven wanted to put in a gas station in the 7-Eleven just down the street. And I live in like a really super residentially not affluent area, but they wanted to put in a gas station. And it wasn't so much like I was just opposed to this idea of a gas station because then it would permanently change that section to more gas stations and more. So I'm wondering what it is. Well, it's hard to say what it is he's opposing. You don't really know. But I was attacked at my meeting for saying I was against gas. I was very anti-gas, and I wasn't. I'm all for gas, folks.
You're not a radical environmentalist or something?
I'm just like, I don't know if I want 16 gas stations later down the road 5 years from now. And then there's the lights and all these other considerations and traffic, and it just turns. So I don't know. These zoning things are complicated, but nonetheless, every single article says Dave Chapelle is against affordable housing. And I doubt that is the case.
Well, yeah, exactly. And look, I would love to play a bit of video where he's explaining, no, actually what I want is more affordable housing. This plan would have limited it. I don't want that, but there's room for a new plan. Maybe that statement is forthcoming. Maybe today his publicist will put out something, but there is no clarification after a day of he's trying to kill the affordable housing. Now, there have been other people who opposed it who said, we're doing it for all of these different reasons, not because we have opposed the affordable housing. So that's entirely possible. Also, though, generally when people oppose things moving to their neighborhood, they don't generally just come out and say it. So we can't be sure that if that little bit of nuance is added, that it isn't self-serving and not actually reflective of why they're opposing it. So I'm just saying, I can't say definitively exactly what's going on. It seems inconsistent with much of his commentary, to say screw affordable housing. That doesn't seem consistent with his comedy going back literally decades. But on the other hand, some critics will say, well, he's wealthy now. He's been wealthy for a long time, so maybe he's changed. I don't know. I just hope
maybe he just hates condos, hates condominiums, just hates them.
I can see that.
Because in a lot of developments, and we see this in LA County too, they'll sort of bribe or sort of cajole, or however they get development started, they will convince people that it's a good idea by adding 50 affordable units to it to sort of sweeten the deal and make it sort of, oh, well, okay, now it's irresistible. And then it's undefined as to how long those units will stay affordable, and for whom, and how much will they cost. And I think we see this in a lot of cities as well. So it's hard to say what the opposition is exactly. But I don't live there. And
well, do you you said you were born there. Do you have any lingering knowledge of when they say these homes are gonna start at about 300,000? Do you have any idea of what that means in the context of that area?
It's really expensive. I mean, for Ohio, but we're seeing these elevated real estate prices wherever we are. And Ohio is, listen, it's about to be transformed by this new microprocessor, Intel microprocessor plant in Columbus, Ohio. It'll be the largest chip maker on the planet. Will be in Columbus, and where my mom lives there in a rural community, those values will be completely unaffordable for anyone who lives there, and rents will go up. But we're seeing this in all these sort of
buy now.
Basically, get your ass in there now and buy. Absolutely. Snap things up at 310, 360, 380, because it'll be 640 in about 2 years. No joke. Yellow Springs is a very nice town too. It's a progressive, nice, idyllic Ohio community with a college. So a lot of these small towns, like where I grew up too, they have like a stranglehold on maintaining the status quo, not changing the complexion of it. Sure. I don't mean that in a racial way. I just mean like keeping it small, keeping it, preserve it. And zoning is very strict in these places. You can't even put an awning out without having a meeting. So, or a sign or something, So I don't know. But he is doing a comedy club there, and it looks kind of, I don't know, that there's going to be a comedy club and there's going to be a restaurant he's building. And I think is that the 60 million he's talking about?
I think he's referencing overall what the company is worth. I don't know exactly what the investment specifically there would be, but it seems significant. It seems like millions of dollars.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, we to add one more layer to the way most people respond to this, we have no idea what the vote would have been had he not shown up. Like maybe it would have been 2-2 anyway. Maybe he isn't an emperor in that area. I don't know. We will see.
It was a 2-2 vote. So apparently I thought it was interesting that there's no tiebreaker for these kinds of things. Like so I guess the project does not go forward if it's a 2-2 vote. Okay, exactly. Good to know. If you're building in Yellow Springs, heads up.
Yeah, invest in that third vote. Welcome back, everyone, to what remains of the show with me, Johnny Rolla, and Brian Unger, who joins us once again. Brian, it is great to have you back.
So great to be here. Thank you.
With that said, why don't we, let's see, I'm gonna read one or two comments here. Shayala sent in a super chat saying, John, conviction for breaking the Presidential Records Act of 1978 means Trump couldn't hold office again. Do not underestimate this transgression. I don't believe that you are at all wrong about what technically is true. I just don't have a lot of reason based on the experience I have of the past few years to believe that the DOJ would actually pursue it, that they would take it to trial. Like, I just don't think we live in that consequential universe that you've sketched out. We should, but anyway. Philip, thank you for your super chat, as always. Let's see, Brian says, I can tell now that I have not grown up. I'm still laughing at poop jokes. If journalists have verified sources, we should be upset with delayed info. Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Like I was reading, so like some people get frustrated with online recipes, how like to get to the recipe, you have to scroll through a whole bunch of text or whatever. I saw multiple op-eds explaining, well, like don't get mad at people because they have to do that for algorithmic reasons. And I wonder, Are we eventually gonna have a backlash to the why didn't you reveal your reporting thing? I feel like it's coming. Anyway, with that said, let's jump into some nonsense with this video.
I do believe in the integrity of people in public service. I want the public to have that understanding. We have to do this to deter something that we see as a problem, but it is a confidence issue. And if that's what the members want to do, then that's what we will do.
So that is Speaker Nancy Pelosi talking about the fact that apparently, as was announced yesterday, legislation including some form of ban on stock trading for those in Congress could be put on a fast track. It could be coming very soon. We know she said she wants to see a tightening of fines on lawmakers who violate existing ethics laws, which are basically meaningless. We've done lots of reporting on that. She wants new controls on members of Congress to be extended to the entire federal government. She singled out the need to include the federal judiciary. So if you're gonna ban Congress people from owning individual stocks, then the judges should be banned from that as well. And to that I say, that seems like a very good idea. Yes, we should totally do that. I'm perfectly fine with that. She said she wanted any stock limitations to apply to basically the whole thing. The executive branch as well. And yeah, why not? I mean, if the concern is that these people have special information and or special ability to affect the outcomes in the stock market, then yeah, potentially that makes sense to ban that. Anyway, we know, Brian, that she had been kind of against this idea just about a month ago. She was very dismissive of the concept. She's not like outright pushing for it herself, but she doesn't seem like she's going to block it at least. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the proper progressive position to be in. I mean, listen, if you're regulating an economy and you are presiding over it and passing laws that govern it and limit it and or enhance it, whether it's taxes or any other or environmental regulations. I mean, I'm not sure having these stocks in a blind trust or something that just feels a little more unbiased. It feels like a good idea. I mean, God knows, we have such a high level of white collar crime in this city, and yet so many people go to jail for lesser crimes. That is the true crime. And so yeah, anything that I mean, the folks who are disclosing their stock trades aren't doing so for they're either not doing it or they're doing it a year later, and a lot of it is scrubbed anyway. And I don't know how this applies. It's like individual trades. So like if you have a mutual fund, you don't really know what your broker is doing anyway. It's kind of like in a thing, and he or she trades daily, individuals that enhance or whatever your portfolio, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's probably a good idea to like not be playing in the casino if you are passing the rules of the casino. It just doesn't, it's just unfair. And it's another example of this free enterprise system run amok where it collides with good policy. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I get why they would want to be able to do it. I like money, I'd like more of it, they want more of it. But then go work on Wall Street. Go start a business. If your primary goal is to personally enrich yourself, there are many industries where you can do that quite successfully.
And I also
supposed to be going.
I'm with you. Sorry. And I also ask myself frequently is why do people want to hold on to jobs if you're in Congress, why do you really want to keep running year after year, term after term after term? And I think this is part of the justification is that the longer I stay in, the richer I get. And it's not so much the salary I'm getting, it's all this other money that I am earning and shaping and contouring for my children and my grandchildren and my estate and all this crap. That helps explain it, because let's face it. I mean, who wants to be a congressperson for 12 terms? I mean, that's not fun.
In theory, I think it could be if you were really advocating for your constituents and you were able to make some changes. But there are plenty of people that I can't point to anything they've done in 20 years. They just stick around. They've got, that alligator blood as they say. But anyway, yeah, I think what they're talking about here makes sense. We will have to see at the end of the day. It's very easy to say you support something like this, maybe a little bit harder to vote in support of it. So we'll have to see, but there's potentially a lot on the line. I like the widening to include the judiciary. As the Wall Street Journal found, dozens of federal judges had financial conflicts in cases that they were ruling on. So it's not just, like Joe Manchin killing climate change legislation when he owns a coal mine. Judges can do this as well. Now, Pelosi would not very specifically answer whether spouses would be included. I don't know exactly why she had a problem answering that. Maybe because her spouse trades tons of stocks, and it seems like, in my experience, sometimes spouses talk to each other. I don't know, maybe that's different for different couples, but if you got secret information and you can't act on it, but you live with someone who can, that seems like a problem. So I would probably include the spouses in this.
And that's gonna lead to a lot of divorce if a bill gets, because I think being intoxicated by money would overrule any fidelity and any need to be married. I'd be like, yeah, honey, we're getting a divorce, and I'd like you to continue trading stocks, and then we'll reconcile in 4 years. That's what we'll do.
Exactly. When we'll redo our vows on Lake Como.
Yeah, they will never
be able to afford it.
But the thing is, they will never be able to write this legislation. They will, but I can't imagine them ever being able to write something. It would be so toothless and just cosmetic, or it would just be bogged down in impossible. It would be impossible, because you bring up a good point. What about spouses? What about kids? What about, what is?
Ban them all. Ban everybody, honestly. It won't affect most working people anyway, because 90% of the stocks are owned by like 10% of the population. So yeah, you're right. There are definitely issues with it, but I think we can go further than the Stock Act. I mean, as you pointed out, most people don't even comply with it. If they do, it's super late. And then who cares? Like, if I find out 6 months later that you traded a stock, and the concern is that you might have done so based on information you had, I can't follow that because it's 6 months until I find out. And it doesn't make the behavior illegal. I just maybe can do some investigations about a timeline and establish that it seems unethical. I want it to be illegal.
It's like finding out Jeff Zucker was dating someone that worked for him.
That's a crazy hypothetical that you're proposing.
I don't know. It's not like that at all. But it just basically means that people declare these things and these indiscretions and discrepancies like years later, and then it gets used against them for some political purpose. If you're gonna do it, and if they are going to do it and are serious about it, they do have to make it a complete, absolute thing. No trading for you, no trading if you're married, no trading for your spouse. And that's that, and it remains that way until you're out of office.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can still do mutual funds and things like that, just not individual stock ownership.
And go do what people used to do, which is serve one term and then go work in the private sector and be a total corrupt asshole there.
Yeah, or just put all of your money into apes. Just buy some apes. Come on, buy those NFTs. You can make money off of that. Anyway,
and you know what? As soon as I figure out what those things are, I'm getting some.
Exactly. I like the idea. I want to be cool.
I can't wait to get NFTs.
Exactly, or some acronym. Just give them to me. I want them. Anyway, okay. With that said, we are going to take our second break of the first hour, but don't go anywhere. Lots of fun coming up after this. Okay, everybody, it is time to get serious. Hold on to your butts. Watch this.
Not only do we have the DC jail, which is the DC gulag, but now we have Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police spying on members of Congress, spying on the legislative work that we do, spying on our staff, and spying on American citizens that want to come talk to their representatives. This government has turned into something it was never meant to be, and it's time to make it end.
Okay. Marjorie Greene is an example of how the government has turned into something it was never meant to be. But I don't know that soup necessarily has much to do with it. If you're not following the issue, it is that gazpacho, of course, is a chilled Spanish soup made most frequently, I learned, with tomatoes. The Gestapo was the notorious Nazi secret police. So that is, there are several differences between those two things, Brian.
Listen,
a few small differences.
This is so easy to mock and so easy to ridicule. But I think that for far too long, people in Washington have lacked the courage to police soup. We have for so long, and I'm so happy that she's willing. I'm worried about the budget for this new police force because, I mean, how is this going to be like, the airport security? That was a huge addition to our federal budget. But the Gazpacho police, I'm imagining, would be just maybe a handful of people who do random checks on soup. But I hate cold soup, so I'm for the Gazpacho police. I think it's cold soup is the worst idea anyone ever had, and I love soup so much. I have it every day. I love soup in the summer. I support a Gazpacho police force. I just, what kind of force do they use when they confront a Gazpacho? That's I don't know.
I don't know.
I think there's a convergence of this story and the White House pooping story, the Gazpacho, and these two things kind of fit together somehow. I don't know.
I don't want
there's
them
a link
to, but perhaps they do. There is a link. Yeah, I don't know how much funding goes to the Gazpacho police. I don't know if, there's been a lot of concern about the militarization of police departments. Are they bringing back from Iraq military grade croutons for this? I don't know, but they need to look into it. Anyway,
listen.
This is one of the top 50 stupidest things she said.
Yeah, it's like one of the, when you really think about this is one of the dumbest things anyone has ever said ever. Like it's really, really, really like anyone who ever, like a researcher or historian about the Holocaust never said Hitler's Gazpacho force was very brutal and relentless and unforgiving, and the Gazpacho would go, and no one ever got those words mixed up.
No, she was first. She's trailblazer. Yeah. I want to put. So she said that.
She did.
Into a video camera. I want to put it into perspective. So I was studying abroad many years ago in Egypt. And I grew up reading more than talking, which means sometimes I've read a word many times, but never used it in conversation or heard it. And I remember I once in conversation using the word ambivalent, pronounced it ambivalent. And I was so mortified that I still remember that happened like 20 years ago. She said Gazpacho. And the thing is, like, okay, this is just a stupid thing that she said, but it's
that's
not
a great
just
picture there of the little children having it.
I know. Why is that next to me? Anyway, here's the thing: to make that mistake, you can't know much about the Holocaust and World War II. It is impossible. So not only is it so scary that she doesn't understand that movement and thus is incapable of understanding if there's any ideological or tactical crossover with developing political movements in America, but she's invoking it to attack her enemies without understanding the most base things about it. We need information about this. If you should know anything about history, I would say I would put the Holocaust probably in the top 5 or so. I feel like you should know that. And she especially should know that, because not to jump ahead or whatever, but she had to apologize earlier last year for invoking the Holocaust in the anti-vax thing. She went to the Holocaust Museum as part of her apology tour and apparently paid so little attention that she came out thinking more about soup than about the secret police.
Listen, the soup bowl is half full here. She knows the soup. And I think that is, a lot of people would say Gazpacho, remind me. She knows what it is or what it isn't, or what she thinks it is what it's not. And that's something. I still love that you're showing these two gorgeous little white girls eating chicken noodle soup. So that's my favorite thing about this story.
It's not even gazpacho in there. Anyway, really fast, I just want to give credit to a few of my favorite politicians. Ilhan Omar tweeted out, "It's not real. We are being pranked." Nope, sorry. I wish it was a fake as well. It doesn't seem that it was. AOC tweeted, "At least she leads by example. She clearly banned all books from her house years ago." And says, "For real though, when you see how the GOP openly embrace and leverage fascist members of their party versus how much some Dems run away and frame their own base mobilizers as quote just as extreme, it's not hard to see how that asymmetry, false equivalence has contributed to where we are." Yeah,
well, listen, there are two great outcomes that can happen. One, everyone in America who is on the left can send gazpacho to her, which I think would be awesome. And think of the Halloween costumes that we're looking at.
No,
that are upcoming.
No.
The gazpacho police, I mean, just the gazpacho police force is gonna be so amazing.
Oh, geez. Just be careful. Someone's getting canceled over this.
I know.
Anyway, really fast, I just wanted to send people back to the closest equivalent to this we could find was the time that Scott Walker said to a Jewish constituent, Molotov, which is not right, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, okay, with that said, really fast, we want to close out the first hour of the show with some good news, so let's jump into this. You probably didn't need any more reason to believe that Dolly Parton is a national treasure, but we have another reason for you. Hershend Enterprises, this is Dollywood's parent company, announced 2 days ago that Dollywood will pay 100% of the tuition costs, fees, and books for employees who pursue higher education. Starting in just a week or two, all 11,000 seasonal, part-time, and full-time employees at Hershend's 25 US attractions, including Dollywood itself, can register for what's called the Grow You Pilot Program, which provides free access to more than 100 fully funded diploma, degree, and certificate programs in a number of different fields, including business administration, finance, technology, and more. By the way, in addition to that, they also provide free meals for every working shift. There are apprentice and leadership training programs. They also pay a portion of childcare costs for employees who need childcare while they work, which is good news, obviously, for them. Also for me, because I think I might be applying soon. Anyway, that is a nice set of benefits there, Brian.
I know she is sort of a national treasure. I hear that to qualify though, you do have to stand up and at Pigeon Forge and at some sort of stage and sing "I Will Always Love You," and you have to get through that song and hit every note. No. And then you're eligible. Then you're eligible for the scholarship. No, I mean it's like it's insanely generous, and it's also so unusual for the region in which Pigeon Forge is, and that where Dollywood is. It's such a conservative place where or just a place where this idea of funding people's education is probably pretty unheard of. Yeah.
Well, maybe she can change the culture a bit. We wanted to remind you of a few other things she's been involved in recently. The Dollywood Foundation gives more than $1 million in donations a year to local groups in Tennessee. Her Imagination Library teams with communities each month to give children high quality books at no cost. Back in 2020, Parton's friendship with a Nashville doctor led to the singer donating $1 million to Vanderbilt University for COVID-19 research, which partially funded Moderna's coronavirus vaccine. And she also revealed last year that the royalties she made for writing "I Will Always Love You," which became a global phenomenon when it was covered by Whitney Houston in 1992 in The Bodyguard, those royalties were invested in a building in a historically Black Nashville neighborhood. So
she's not doing enough. Clearly, she's not doing enough.
No, come on.
I know.
You're okay with these donations. You're no Betty White. We're gonna have to see you up that charitable giving. Anyway, no, just awesome to see. With great power comes great responsibility. So in the vein of Spider-Man, Dolly Parton is making the world a better place. Anyway, with that said, we are running out of time in this first hour. Just wanted to thank a few members of our audience before we close things out for the first hour. Ukami subscribed for the 17th month on Twitch. All out of, I'm gonna say, Fuchs to Give, subscribe for the 16th month. Thank you for that and for being with us. Lizzie Nippon for the 12th month. Zero Juro for the 9th month as well, says love you dragons. and we love you right back. Well, with that said, if you're watching on one of our linear platforms, that is unfortunately all the show we have to give. But if you're on Twitch or on YouTube or on the members app, don't go anywhere because Brian and I will be back after just a short break. We'll see you in a bit.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.